is very, very dear to my heart.
All right, say
Uh,
that again. Here we go. All right, Dave's going to introduce Matt.
well, I'm very close to Matt. In fact, I still have a VW, a Volkswagen that I purchased off of his Auburn dealership there, and it's still Matt is still running, it's still going, and you're not too far away from me most of the time. But at any rate, it's such a joy and blessing to have met you from the very beginning, and knowing about your life, the life that you led, and the circumstances that brought you to Jesus Christ, and then brought you to the fellowship. And it's been such a blessing to see your life and your growth with your family and your children, all the way along, as you have been so fully committed in your life to walking and serving not only the Lord but and serving. And so I don't know that you have a huge. Here's a man who has a huge servant heart. So I introduce you to Matt Welch, and I'm a servant of God with a huge servant heart.
Thank you, Dave. I sure appreciate that. Our motto at Auburn Volkswagen was making lives better, one Volkswagen at a time. And I'm so glad to hear that that's been the case for you, Dave. Yeah, I'm so grateful for this group, and to see all of you it's just tremendous. And, anytime I go hear a speaker or go to training, and I remember all of my team members, I would tell them, because you're talking to sales staff that doesn't want to go to training because they're going to miss the floor and they're not going to be able to sell anything that day, or a technician that's in the middle of a job and he doesn't want to go to training because he's trying to fix this car and get it out. And I would always say, change your attitude and your perspective when you go to training. I want you to go and listen for two things that you're going to take with you the rest of your life. And that mindset of going to training and getting those two things would stop you, because I would do it myself. It would stop me from saying, what am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to do after training? And I'm so thrilled to say that all the people that I've heard speak on this call have given me one or two of those things that I take with me all through my life. And so I hope something I say does that for you today, or something that comes out in conversation does that for you today, because you have all done that for me. And this group has meant a lot to me, and I'm very grateful. So for those of you that don't know me or haven't known me, I met the fellowship about 15 years ago, and I was in the auto industry running a Volkswagen dealership. And I was blessed to own Auburn Volkswagen for 16 years. And we, in 2012, my bride and I thought about selling it. And we were just married, 2 kids. And God told us, we prayed about it, her, myself, and her mom. And he told us all the same thing. I gave you this to be a light in the community. And so for the next decade, all we did was nonprofit engagement. Every commercial, every Seahawk we worked with, anything we did was just to bless people. And we ran it with that for the next decade, to just be a light in the community. And so we're so grateful we were able to do that. And then we sold it in 2022. It was very clear. We got the same kind of message. Now we want you to do something else. And, when you really pray and get tuned in and are open to listening to what God's going to tell you. I've done some habits for the last couple of years that have helped me with that. He'll talk to you. And, I've already picked up one thing this morning that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. And it was, Perry said, prayer is when we talk to God. The Bible is him talking to us. So thank you, Perry. You've already given me one thing this morning that I'm going to take with me. That was awesome. But I got latched on to a book called Miracle Morning, and you do 5 different practices every morning. And so the first hour of the day, my bride and I, some together and some separately, do 5 practices, which is journaling, affirmations, prayer and meditation, exercise, and reading. And so you do those 5 in the first hour. And if you can do that, and I know many of you can, it's the first hour is the rudder for your day. And it puts you in a headspace and a mind space of being with Jesus. I've already journaled my thoughts. I've processed some things, got my body going a little bit, right? And it's changed how I can hear Jesus, which has been tremendous. And then in the last 18 months, it was very clear to me what God wanted me to do. And he told me a year ago what we make vision boards at our house for each, myself, my bride, and our 3 kids. Individually make our own vision board and pray about a word for every year. And my word for 2023 was intention, to be intentional as a dad and a husband. And what he impressed on me in the middle of last year in 2023, and he bonked me on the head 3 times. He said, follow me, be her husband, be their dad. And then he bonked me again, follow me, be her husband, be their dad. And so sure, we've got ventures and we've got different things, but right now in this season, he wants me to follow him, be her husband, be their dad. And so my vision board looks like that. And my word for the year this year is obedience. And I've got, this side is about being obedient, Jesus, Matthew, husband, dad, bride, and then the kids. But being obedient doesn't necessarily, when you hear that word, you don't think fun. You don't think like, that's not a sexy word, right? But what I've found is when you're obedient, you just listen. You say a prayer of, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. That he'll tell you and he'll guide you and he'll take you into the next thing. So I'm really got my arms around being my bride's husband and being my kid's dad for this season. But the follow me part is really incredible what keeps happening and what keeps engaging. So I'll just give you a little bit. You guys have probably seen the He Gets Us ads that are basically just about Jesus. He gets us. Jesus gets us. And they're aimed, and there's Alan putting his hat on. They're aimed at the 100 million seekers that are open but that are lost, and maybe they're open to anything, but knowing who Jesus is, not religion, just Jesus. And we call this the AIR campaign. And so I'm involved with these guys. He Gets Us. This is a book by Max Lucado. And Alan Pratt took us to see, and so you talk about the things that come out of this fellowship or that come out of relationships that you build. Alan Pratt took us to see the Green family that founded Hobby Lobby, David Green, at their office in Oklahoma City. When I say office, it's a campus as big as Microsoft. They're the biggest employer in Oklahoma City when you go down there. It's unbelievable. And they've got 4 generations of folks committed to giving it all the way to Jesus. And so they've given away hundreds of millions of dollars. Think about the Bible Museum. You think about things that they've done that affect our life every day. Even all of us on this call, the YouVersion app on the Bible app. They're translating the Bible into they're behind all of that. Bible Museum, and well, they're also behind He Gets Us. And the genesis of this, for those of you that don't know, was during COVID. David Green, who's 81, said, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. And we've given away hundreds of millions of dollars, but I don't see the needle moving the right direction for the spiritual temperature of the country, right? And then he said words that rocked the rest of the family. He said, how did the greatest love story of all time become known as a hate? And that's the genesis of He Gets Us. And over the next 6 months, they had agencies come in and try to figure it, and they created this AIR campaign of He Gets Us that is driving billions of hits to their website and their Instagram page that are then being funneled out to the local communities and the faith-based communities all around the country. So it's just an incredible program that they've got going to just have massive effect for Jesus. And how can we all do that individually? And it's just one of the neat things. And then they asked me to talk a little bit about, I heard some of you praying about the human condition being hard, and it is. The human condition is hard. But when you have Jesus and peace in your heart, it goes a lot better. And if you're tuned into what he's telling you to do right in front of you, the next right thing, and you're just stay tuned in and having conversations with him all day long, and don't listen to the news, but listen to what he's telling you, things go so much better. You find joy that Lori was praying about earlier. I just wanted to share with you about the prayer breakfast. It started in 1935 with this group that we're sitting in right now in this Zoom room in 1935. And Abraham Verady then created with Jesus this group, another one in Chicago, another one in San Francisco. You guys know the history of it. But we ended up in DC, and the national prayer breakfast started in 1963. And every president has been every year since 1963 until this current administration. And think about that. Since 1963, it's been going.
Matt, that's 1953.
Okay, sorry. But
Fact check.
when you go for the first time, I'll never forget my eyes just going, wow. We've got Hindus, Buddhist, Jewish, Muslim, cultural, grew up anywhere, all coming together around the principles of Jesus. Over 2,000 people, 150 countries coming together around the principles of Jesus because he's something to everyone. When I got that in my brain, I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so to the Muslim, he's a prophet. To the Jew, he's a rabbi. To the Hindus and the Tibetan monks, he's an incredible teacher. But his principles of loving God and loving your neighbor translate anywhere. You could parachute me into 150 countries and I can talk about Jesus. Not religion, not Christianity, but Jesus. And really, isn't that the focus of what he's asked us to do, is talk about him and his name. And his name has so much power. And when you get that vision, it's just like, wow. And the relationships that are built. So this year, I met last night, and Wes, I think I met Wes through this group as well. And whenever he taps me, we have a standing thing where we say yes. whenever Jesus taps us, we say yes. So he asked us to speak in church last week. So my wife and I were on stage for all three services. And it took me all three services to get the point of what our pastor was making at the end of his thing, where he said, his words were, my foundation is Jesus or it's nothing. My foundation is Jesus or it's nothing. And that brought me back. I'm going to just sideways. That brought me back to the Seahawks. Pete Carroll got let go yesterday, and he created a culture here for 14 years of incredible, just blessing these young men to become better men. And I'll never forget when they won the Super Bowl. I was every year I would work with 3 Seahawks and give them a car, and they would help me bless kids. And Byron Maxwell told me after the Super Bowl that we're all there. We're in DC. We're in New York, and they won. And a big party that night. Paul Allen was on stage playing the guitar. They were just having so much fun. And Byron told me the next day, they all looked at each other and said, what now? What do we do now? And they all deepened their faiths after that because it was empty. So money's not going to fill the hole. Fame's not going to fill the hole. It was wonderful that they won, but they're like, I guess we just go do it again. But they all deepened their faiths because they realized that it wasn't really, you've got to have Jesus fill the hole. And so I just thought I'd share that after Pete got let go yesterday, because I'll never forget Byron telling me, we were just standing there going, what do we do now? And they all got deeper and closer to Jesus.
He didn't totally get let go. They're keeping him on as a senior advisor.
You can call it whatever you want, but I'm just, he didn't want to leave.
But most people don't get treated that well. I'm just saying, he was such a sterling guy. They treated him.
he's first class and the org is first class. But I just in my 14 years of working with the people they had, top. Now, I mean, Tyler Lockett's one of the best humans that I've ever worked with. Taylor Rapp is too, by the way. He won the game for Buffalo the other night. But I got it. I just wanted to bring up to the prayer breakfast what it's about and what it's about now. So last night we had at West Baptist to host a suite. So 3 couples are hosting the suite in DC for the Washington delegation. And when you think about Wes, you think about Auburn VW. He handed it to Doug Coe, right? And now they have a group putting it together, and it's actually gotten tighter knit. So there's no overflow rooms now. There's 2,000 people all in the ballroom from 140 plus countries. And it's about the relationships that develop there outside of the rooms. I mean, I've seen and been witness to conflicts getting resolved between world leaders there at the breakfast in the suite. I mean, you talk about there's over 100 conflicts going on right now where people are dying, people are getting attacked, and many of those world leaders come to the breakfast. We'll have over 10 heads of state, 3 or 4 African heads of state, Ghana. I mean, the people you meet there are coming there around the principles of Jesus, and they're coming there, and you build relationships, and they build relationships with each other. And you never know what it's going to be, but if you I'll never forget my first time just being tuned in to, okay, Jesus, what do you want to show me? And that was the day that the Sri Lanka, the Tamil Tigers were fighting, and I saw President Rapaksa, and and then they solved it like the next day. Those type of things, the reconciliation that's happening of what Jesus is doing around the world in these 140 countries through ordinary people. Think about it now. Every world leader is just an ordinary person. And with power comes a lot of other things. And one of them is corruption. But also, when you get reconciliation, I'll never forget when my wife and I traveled to South Africa, and we saw the guards that had guarded Mandela and the prisoners that were in with Mandela are now in relationship, and they're closest friends, and they watch each other's kids. And when you see that kind of reconciliation, you know anything's possible with Jesus at the center, because he was definitely at the center of that with Nelson Mandela, and we saw the result of it. And so one of those relationships that I built outside of the breakfast from being there about 7 or 8 years ago was with a guy in the UK named Matt Bird. And he had a nonprofit in the UK that I was so impressed upon what it was doing. I said, we need to found that in the US. And so it's called NAYBA, N-A-Y-B-A. And I founded it for the US. And now this year, we are coming alongside He Gets Us. We're coming along, and we do a lot of things. One of the things we do is a faith action audit in a community. So it's a dashboard that any church can tap into to really come alongside churches and help them be relevant in their community. When I say faith action audit, the first 3 we did were in different boroughs in New York, where we measure the impact the entire faith community is having in a city. And then we put it into a report, and we say, okay, these are the challenges they're tackling. This is how much it's worth based on MIT's wage structure for that city. And this is what they're doing combined, collectively, the entire faith community. And then we present it to the civics. So the mayor of New York saw this and said, oh my gosh, we have to engage this. And then when everywhere we've been around, the civics are like, oh my gosh, I never thought to ask the church for help. Other than Tennessee, they're in. The governor of Tennessee has a faith group in his office saying, okay, this is what we need to do, faith initiatives. But the mayor of Tacoma, literally, we're going to launch February 1st with ours at the prayer breakfast this year. And the mayor of Tacoma called me yesterday or 2 days ago and said, we want to do the Faith Impact Audit. We want Tacoma to be the first one on the West Coast, and we want to do it February 1st at 2:00. And when you see God wink at you like that, okay, we've created a whole new strategic plan for the next 3 years. We've got everything's being built right now. We're going to launch February 1st. And then Mayor of Tacoma says, we want to do it for February 1st, and I'm here in Tacoma, right? I'll be at the prayer breakfast zooming it back into Tacoma. But these relationships came out of the first time I went to DC, right? The first time I was at the prayer breakfast, from Alan Pratt taking me to the Green family, and now the He Gets Us. Everywhere you go, Jesus will just keep. So when he says, follow me, be ready for an adventure. So, I mean, be ready for an adventure. And I think about, Wes, and he's been a wonderful ambassador for Jesus around the world. Helped get the guy out of prison in Turkey, the pastor that was there. He went and met with them, and he's been just an ambassador for Jesus, as all of you have. You think about Doug Coe, who's ambassador for Jesus, who was handed, from Variety, you take over. And I want to share with you the Centered app. There's a Centered app on your phone that is this group, right? And they created it for all kinds of resources. And if you click on the Centered app and you click on resources, all of Doug Coe's recordings that they got, like 2 years before he passed away, about the principles of Jesus are all there. And I watch them once a year. And anytime I need a little pick-me-up to be, redirected towards just Jesus, I listen to those Doug Coe videos. And each one's about 2 minutes long. And he takes you through the whole thing about what his experience has been, the principles of Jesus. So I just wanted to share with you that, there's so much bad in the news and so much happening. There's so much good happening with Jesus, and anyone can be turned. And I'm always reading a couple books. I've got, I read He Gets Us and Civic. Right now I'm reading Elon Musk. Well, it's a big book. And when you think about, one of the things Coe taught me was anyone, Jesus can use anyone. And the more influence they have, the better. And when I read about Musk, I can see deep inside his South African brain in this because I've been there. And I don't know anyone who has more influence than him. And he wants to go to Mars. And it's really fascinating why he wants to do, all the stuff. But if someone like this gets turned to Jesus, think about the influence. And I'll never forget Coe being at a concert. And someone's dad had taken him there. And the son was on stage, and they were saying a lot of bad words to the crowd, and the dad was embarrassed, and he was saying, I'm sorry about that. And the Doug's like, are you kidding me? Look at the influence this guy has. If this guy comes to Jesus, think about all these people hearing that. And guess what? That guy did come to Jesus, and a whole bunch of those people heard about it, right? What Jesus can do with anyone on the planet is not our business. Our business is to love, 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 right? It's not to judge. It's not to say you're doing something wrong. It's to be in relationship with people and bring Jesus with you and make sure you're listening to him. It's been my experience. This is just my experience, right? But the more that we stay tuned in, my family, myself, my bride, the more we stay tuned in, the better things go. And Alexis has been in charge of Centered for a while, and she's now just switched careers to a different one. And I just want to give her a huge, grateful thank you for this whole group, the Centered group. This year, we're taking, last year they had 40 something. This year, we're taking the largest delegation from any state to the prayer breakfast in DC. Over 70 people. We have a suite. My bride and I are hosting it with two other couples, Diego and Amy Delomo, and the Ukrainian consul. So the Ukrainian consul to Seattle, Valery, and his wife Solomia are hosting the Washington suite. We have over 70 people going. Last night, we did the agenda for what everyone's going to be exposed to and who they're going to hear from around the world. And I just wanted to encourage you, I asked him last night, what's happening with the war? How can we help you? Well, our breakfast for the United States is Thursday morning, February 1st, 2,000 people. The next morning is the Ukrainian breakfast there. Leaders from Ukraine, legislature, the ambassador, all of them will be there with 500 people. And I mean, they're fighting for their lives, and they're dependent upon aid, and they're dependent, right? But miracles are happening there too, even though they're outnumbered 10-1 right now. And he's hosting, right? And he's hosting the breakfast, and he's part of it. He wants all of us to come to the Ukrainian breakfast. So Wes opened that one in prayer last year. This group has impact and influence. It's had it on me. It's had it on everyone on this call. And I'll never forget the last conversation I had with Doug Coe. He literally took me by the shoulders and said, make sure that group in Seattle keeps going, because that's where it all started. Mm-hmm. And so I want to thank Banked for the leadership you've shown here. Christopher Stone, I mean, you've called me faithfully year after year after year. And all the people, I mean, I can name every person on here. But for Bank and Chris to keep it going and to call me yesterday and say, can you do 3? I'm just kidding. But to keep it going and to be faithful and to have that joy that things are happening in a wonderful way everywhere in the world with Jesus at the center. It's just not what you hear. Yeah. But it is what you see now on Super Bowl ads, right? It is what you see now with the air campaign. So the fact that the Green family and the Green Foundation is behind He Gets Us is so exciting to me, that they're opening Jesus up to people that probably just wouldn't have heard, or who knows how they're going to hear. And all I know through my journey is that when I hear Him say, follow me, it's going to be an adventure, and I have to listen. But every morning I have to say, whatever you've got going on, Lord, I'd love to be a part of it. Speak, because your servant is listening. And if I just keep that attitude of openness for whatever He's got going, you see where it takes you. And so I'm supposed to be retired and focused on just being her husband and their dad. And the follow me keeps, he'll lead you if you ask Him. So He's doing it, and I'm super grateful. And so that's my time. I'm just very, very grateful to be here and see all of you, and to be an instrument. And hopefully something I said, there's Alan Pratt, I'll never forget when you said the word God incidents. The genocide in Rwanda happened a long time ago, and I mean, on the bookshelf is Immaculée Ibagaza's Left to Tell. Amazing story about how she survived. And I can't even begin to describe it, but I got a ping on this morning that Immaculée was live praying. So this phone can be used for the Bible app, for center. Sure, it can be used for gaming. It can be used for all kinds of bad news, but it can be used for the Bible app. It can be used for center. It can be, I got that on Instagram for this morning. So I listened before this call. I listened to Immaculée Ibagaza pray for me on Left to Tell. And that's a God incidence right there, because we were talking about it, because the delegation from Rwanda is coming to the prayer breakfast, right? And I'll never forget Todd Gibson. We, in our small group of about 10 men, we all picked 3 or 4 countries to pray for. And be careful, when that happens, because the 3 countries I got, all of a sudden I was in all 3 of them pretty quick. I met the president of Ghana at the prayer breakfast. Croatia I was involved with, and I'm in a relationship with Croatia, and Ukraine was the 3rd one. I'm hosting the Ukrainian suite with the, right? So whatever you pray for, just be open. And you won't see it at that moment. I'll never forget getting those pieces of paper. Okay, I'm going to pray for Ukraine, Croatia, and Ghana. What do they have in common? Well, now I'm in a relationship with leaders from each of them. Right? You just never know what Jesus is going to do. So that's my time. I love all of you.
You are right on time, brother. I just want to say, we've had Alexis on here multiple times, and she brought Valeri here twice. We had to have him on twice to tell his whole story last year, and that was powerful. Powerful
before
stuff.
we get going, I want to introduce somebody, because he has to leave here shortly. On the screen, I don't know where he is in your Hollywood squares. He's kind of middle of the screen for me. Wearing a plaid shirt from Franklin, Tennessee, is my colleague Stuart Rowley. And Stuart, I know you got to leave a little bit early here, would you share whatever you care to with regard to your heart and your involvement in the National Prayer Breakfast, which I think you said goes back about 35 years? Anything you want to.
No,
Yeah,
thanks.
thanks, Alan. I noticed some guests, and we didn't see them early on. We usually introduce our guests. So go ahead.
Well, thank you, Alan. Thanks everybody for allowing me to join in to your time. And I'm not going to bore you with most of my history, but the reality of that, I became connected to this family of friends back in 1978. When I went to a little college in Virginia called James Madison University, met John Coe, David Coe, Tim Coe, Marty Sherman, and a bunch of other people that many of you may know, many of you may not know, but they were a group of friends that had decided that they were going to live together in community on this campus at James Madison University. And by those relationships, they were going to reach out and make an impact on the campus, and that Jesus was going to work through them. And so through those relationships, my journey began, as well as I had the opportunity then to become really good friends with Doug and Abram. Actually met Abram years and years ago, and one time before he passed away, and then have known his family since then. And so understanding and appreciating the heritage that this family has through the family there in Seattle has always been a part of what I know and who I know, and part of my journey. As a matter of fact, my son spent 4 years out there in his residency at at Harbor View. And so he's now back in Richmond, Virginia, but yeah, so we've been out there to Seattle many, many times, just to visit him and to be with them. But Matt, one of the things that you said that really was one of the reminders for me, that one of the things that Doug, as well as others, have always told me, is that when you said that, Jesus is looking for people who are available, and he can work through anybody. As a matter of fact, probably the less skilled, the better you are at being used by God. And so one of the things that Doug, you reminded me of, was the fact that it's not about ability, it's about availability, and that you would move and see the heart of what God is doing through you and in you in that very moment and place and time. And so consequently, we stayed in the DC area and lived there basically until we moved here to Nashville 9 years ago. Now it'll be 10 years this April. And you had mentioned Tennessee as being one of the states where the governor is really involved. And fortunately for me, the reason why I moved here was actually to go to work for the governor. Before he was the governor, being when he owned his mechanical engineering firm, and I was the head of HR for him. And so I have had the pleasure and opportunity to meet and to know and to understand the heart, to pray with and to be with and continue to be with him as a leader of our state, as well as the leader of our country, in terms of the way that the state is kind of being. I can tell you this one thing for sure for him, which would be, like many people else that we know that are connected to this family of friends, is that his heart is to please God. His heart is not to please man.
Right.
And he is an astute person for sure. But his heart has always been to seek what the Lord wants him to do. And that's actually the only reason that he decided to run for governor. And if you go back and look at the reason why he became governor, there's no reason why he should be governor. But yet the only reason that he's governor is because the Lord wanted him there. And so he's been a wonderful friend and has been a great leader for our state, as well as kind of a beacon for our country. But anyway, to that point, that's really kind of, I'm grateful to be a part, grateful to have a chance to share this time with you all. And I told Alan, I apologize, I do have to go to another meeting, but it is great to be with you. And for those of you, anyone that's come into the prayer breakfast this year, I would love to meet you. I'll probably swing by your suite and come introduce myself in person. Matt, for sure, I want to connect with you. And if anybody else is going to be there, would love to do that, and grateful for all that you all continue to do, just to be part and to carry on this heart that Jesus has in both the state of Washington as well as throughout the whole upper Northwest, and grateful for all that you're doing there and all that God is doing in and through each of you. So thanks for allowing me to be a part. Alan, thanks for inviting me,
So
and
glad you
love
joined.
working with you, and love being friends together.
Look forward to seeing you, Stuart.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take
Bye
care.
now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Matt,
Hey,
the other thing I
Bank?
will say is we talking about Wes and the whole tradition. We've had a handful of live breakfasts in the last 2 years since we felt safe. And 2 of them, or 3 maybe, have been at the 17th Ave house. And we had people Zoom in there, and Wes zoomed in, and he told some of the young folks, he said, that was my room right there in the corner there. and he's still living in the neighborhood too.
Hey, Bank. This is Steve.
Yep.
Yeah, just a ditto with Matt with what you just said regarding just, God using common people. I don't particularly feel, I mean, I've got tons of contacts in the community, and yeah, reasonably skilled, but a couple of years ago, my good friend Jeff Judy and I started the Snohomish County Prayer Breakfast, and many of you know a little bit about it, but we we're going to be very intentional this year on giving people an opportunity to come to faith who are not followers of Jesus in that group. So the event is Good Friday, the 29th of March. And if you want to go, we feel it's probably going to be sold out a couple months before. Matt, I'd love to get you up there just to you could come sit at my table and just to expose you to that event. So please reach out to me, and Bank has my contact information.
Thanks, Steve.
The other thing is, it's a little late, but is it possible to go to the prayer breakfast this year? Matt, do you know?
I can find out today. Yeah. Bank, will you get me his info?
I believe, Steve, I believe the answer is yes. I was attempting to go, and it was up in air me, but they were taking reservations all the way up till late January, like January 26th or something.
Yeah.
But
The only question is
We'll get
the
electronically.
Washington delegation
Oh,
had their cutoff. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna figure it out today, because we just talked about it last night. And without Alexis, if Alexis was here, sure. But without Alexis, it's a different program. So we'll figure it out.
Thank you, Matt. I've been very involved with ministry doing work in Ukraine,
Yeah.
with orphan kids. I'd love to share with you a little bit about that.
Wonderful.
And my ministry is church planting all over the world, so I've traveled to a lot of those places. But anyway,
Great.
it'd be fun
Thank
to
you,
connect
Steve.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Matt.
We'd love to
Bless
have
you,
you.
brother. Bless you, brother.
Thank you. Now
Open
it's
forum
question and
time.
answer
Jump on
time.
in. Yes, it is.
I see Brazil there. I like Brazil. The other guy hosting with us in DC is from Brazil and lives here now.
Gutierrez
Zach
found
Hamilton,
us.
thank you for coming. I see you on there.
Glad to be here. Heard some of my favorite people in the same room. Count me in.
Tom
Matthew,
Simons isn't here to ask me a personal question.
well, I don't have any personal questions because you and I are talking all the time, but I wrote down a couple of gems, and maybe others did. Be ready for an adventure. Be obedient, and whatever that, and all that that means, and then be ready for an adventure. I love it. All right. And just your whole theme of follow me, be your husband, and be their father is wonderful. That's a focus,
Thank you.
my friend. That's an absolute.
Well,
focus.
and also I'll underline this, and then I have a simple question too. But that we had Ed Rush on here over the summer, and his whole book is God Talks. So God will talk to you if you shut up for a minute and give him a chance. And it kind of changes your prayer life when you think about it that way. Like not so much talking, but a little more listening. And and he will talk. The other thing you said a couple times, and I think I know what you're talking about because Alan had somebody on here from He Gets Us, but I promise never to call him out, but I do have a friend on here who's an ex-Air Force guy. You said they have a air campaign. What do you mean by the air campaign?
Well, if you think of the marketing and media on TV and Instagram, and that's it's a media campaign, and then the church is the ground campaign, right? So the air campaign is the funding of hundreds of millions of dollars going into all these ads and the Super Bowl and getting it in front of people, and the website and the Instagram and the social media, and Glue is behind it, the technology piece. And if you look up that company, GLOO, these are some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. I've got a call with them at 10:30 today for something else. And the collection of people Scott Beck has put together for that organization is unbelievable. They're running the behind the scenes of it. The He Gets Us is the air campaign, and then the ground campaign is the local church. Right? It's just coming alongside local churches everywhere.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
A few people tuned in a little bit late here. Could you please repeat the 5 things you do in the morning? Or
yeah, it came from the book called Miracle Morning, and the 5 practices that some of the, I try to seek the most successful people in whatever I'm doing, and then reach out and contact them. And some of the most successful people on the planet do these 5 practices or some variation of them, and it's affirmations. So daily affirmations, and I'll read you a couple of mine real quick. Every day I say, don't look back. We're not going that way. We're moving forward perpetually, like an airplane in flight, rising above turbulence. I bring everything to Jesus. If I need him to do king type stuff, I need to treat him like royalty. And I'm becoming healthier each day because I'm committed to making healthy choices for my body and my mind. I'm becoming a better partner for Amy, my bride, by listening intentionally and without interruption to all of her words and responding authentically to her. So those are some of the affirmations I say every morning, 3 times over. So affirmations is 1. Journaling, scribing, writing, any sort of writing. 2. Reading, the Bible, whatever book you're reading. 3. And I try to do 15 to 20 minutes each. So reading, journaling, affirmations, exercise, and prayer, meditation, breathing. There's breathing practices I learned from He Gets Us. If I spend the first 10 minutes breathing, just absorbing and breathing, and then it puts me in a mind space where I can do the rest really well. So those 5 things have become the first hour of our day, and it starts you in a great mindset for the day.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your whole sharing today. And one thing that blessed me in particular was your great emphasis on Jesus himself. He has to be the center of everything.
Thanks, Perry. Yeah, a lot gets attached when humans get involved. But if you just keep it to Jesus, it's been my experience that it goes much better.
Matt, since we have a musician from Spokane who's also here, and for an old banjo player here, there's 2 songs out there that speak to what you were saying this morning. One is I'm just a nobody, but I know somebody. Incredible song.
Love that.
And that applies to just a few of us, but it's so true. The other is Bart Millard's song, which kind of took the world by fire and people didn't realize it. And there's a movie out, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And he did sing at the National Prayer Breakfast 3 or 4 years back.
Yeah, I was there. That guy,
and
I love that guy.
I was tuning in online on that one, I think from the WAC, that was before pandemic. You probably have a song about the weather outside is frightful, because I remember the first prayer breakfast you went to and the blizzard of getting out of DC. But
I got a wife out of it though. We fell in love there, so it's pretty.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, the big run to Richmond. A technical fun question. Last year, there were two prayer breakfasts, one in the Rotunda with coffee and croissants. And that's where the senators and representatives were, and the other at the Hilton. Will it be that way this year?
Yeah, we are having legislators at ours as well. But yeah, there's a different, it's a little bit different. Yeah. So hopefully the next administration will bring everyone back together. But what we found now is that the 2,000 that come is just all about Jesus. People aren't there just to see the president or just to see. This is world leaders coming together, and it's actually a slight improvement in depth of relationships is what we found.
Where's the vice president in all of this?
I don't have any knowledge of that.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Hey, Jack Angus jumped on. I saw him try to speak there a minute ago. Jack, you got a word?
Well, I just wanted to say hi to Matt, but I also wanted to say that we go way back in certain ways. And I'm just thinking about the kids that he has. And I wondered if you could just reflect on that for a moment.
Yeah.
Because now you're very much of a family man. And I knew you before you were a family man. And I'm wondering about one or two things that you've learned that those kids are teaching you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack. I'll never forget. A couple weeks after my first meeting, Big Mitch there said, "You want to be in a prayer group?" And I looked up at him and, yeah, sure. And Jack and Mitch and I met every week for a couple of years there. Just fabulous memory. And when you met me at that moment, my dream was to be married and be a husband and be a dad. And I didn't get that until my mid-40s. I didn't get a bride or kids. So I was late to the party, but I'm the oldest dad in the pool and I'm having the most fun. So yeah, it's been the biggest blessing of my life. And you see it, reflected on here. This whole thing is about kids, is about my bride and my kids. And the 18-year-old is going to college now, still living at home. And she's in cosmetology school. And she's 18, going to be 19 in 2 months. And so we're thrilled that our first one didn't leave the nest, and that we're all 5 of us are still here together. And then the 17-year-old she graduated last year from Life Christian Academy. We moved to Tacoma to raise kids and put them into Life Christian Academy. And we co-parent. They were 3 and 4 when I came in. So I went from 0 to 2, boom. And then I got my first one conventionally 3 years later. So we have an 18, a 17, and a 10. And we moved to Tacoma to raise these kids and put them into Life Christian Academy, which is the best thing we could have ever done because they've been at the same school for 14 years. And we co-parent really well. In the beginning, you can see conflict between previous spouses and kids. And we kept it all about the kids 100%. And in the beginning, we just made sure we spoke edifyingly. And we've actually done talks on this now because we've done such a job co-parenting with Jesus. So, it doesn't come natural. It takes Jesus at the center. But we've done such a job co-parenting that their biological dad just remarried last year and asked me to do the wedding in Cancun. So both families were together, and I officiated the wedding of their dad to his new bride 14 years later. So it's been a tremendous blessing. They're with us 90%, but we've been involved together the whole time. And so the 17-year-old is a junior in high school, and he's varsity in 3 sports. Just the most neatest kid. Young man. And now what's so neat this year is that he's finding his own path to Jesus. He went to church with us, but now he goes to youth group. He goes to men's night. He's doing that on his own. And I shared with him the Doug Coe app last night and the videos of Doug Coe. And I'm like, bro, you got to watch. He's bringing home to me what their youth leaders are saying. I'm like, bro, you got to hear this guy. So I introduced him to Doug Coe last night. But that's the 17-year-old. And then the 10-year-old is the conventional one is going to be 11 in 2 weeks, competitive gymnast. And she's 4 hours a night. She goes to school all day and then 4 hours a night doing gymnastics. Came fourth in state last year, and she's picking colleges and wants to go to the Olympics. And I said that, you know, a 10-year-old, I'm saying that's a nice dream, honey. No, Dad, it's not a dream.
She's picking colleges and she's not even 11 years old.
Yeah,
Wow.
she says, no, Dad, it's a goal. I'm going to Clemson or Oklahoma. Oklahoma's won the national championship the last 4 years. I mean, we're going to a meet in San Diego next week, and the week after we're in Kennewick. And so, yeah, so I'm 100% husband and dad, which is and was my dream that I never had until my mid-40s.
Matthew, this is the first time I've heard about you officiating your wife's ex-husband's marriage. Has that happened? Did that already happen?
Yeah, we did that in April of last year in Cancun. The whole
That's-
family flew down,
That is
both
absolutely.
families all together. We were involved in the whole thing, and
That sounds like loving your
Talks
enemies.
about
That doesn't
that
sound
one,
like
brother.
something a natural person would do.
no, and what's
Oh.
neat about it is, you know, what's neat about it for me is in my 50s now, the younger generation is going to go through things that we already did. And if we can speak into it, they want to hear. And so the intergenerational relationships, I'll never forget the day Jeff Vansel talked about that. And then the C.S. Lewis book, you know, that talks about that of the Screw Tape Letters, where it's Satan's goal is to cut off one generation from the next. And so if we can keep the intergenerational friendships, it really matters. And I'm in a men's group where I'm the youngest. Brad Decker, Todd Gibson, and I are all in our 50s. And Jack McMillan was the oldest, and he passed this year. I mean, we lost some legends this year. But when he talked, boy, there's nothing in life that you, the 80-year-olds, the 90-year-olds, there's nothing in life I'm going to face that you have. And so getting wisdom for navigating that, and your wisdom of perspective is huge. And so that's what this group has introduced to me over the last 15 years. And so for me, it's really important. At church this week, I was walking by and two people were talking, a young gal and a guy, and they both said, we were just talking about you because you gave her this advice when she was coming into a marriage with kids, and you gave me advice when I was going through my divorce. And the advice I got going through my divorce was from Mitch Tufel.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, Mitch. You something you shared with me when I went through it in 2000. I don't remember what year it was. Is now living on because you shared it with me, and that's something that will stay with me forever.
Amen.
About grief and how to keep it on the plate and have a section of it. It has its place, but if you let it, it will take over everything. And so today, our hearts are that way with news. If you listen to bad news and that's all you hear, it's going to take over. But if Jesus is at the center, that will take.
Bank, this just came to my mind on what Matthew said about those men of wisdom that have now gone on to the Lord, like
Jack McMillan.
Jack McMillan. And
He also mentioned Tom Simons, if you caught that earlier.
Tom Simons.
Don Bonker.
But it made me wonder this one, Bank, and maybe this is a future conversation. I'd love to get George Tolles into our Zoom room somehow. And we know this doesn't match his hour in terms of his waking hours. But if there's a way that we could convince George Tolles to share some wisdom with us in this season in his life, that would be awesome. I don't know how we do that, but food for thought.
Well, we could take a vote and agree to have one time, later, maybe a lunch, not a prayer breakfast, a prayer lunch someday.
Lunch with George.
George can lead. I don't know. It's just food for thought because
he has faithfully watched our recordings since we started recording, and he stopped doing his own lunches, and he hasn't gotten out of his own house for a while. I think that would be nice. That would be nice.
Yeah, instead of breakfast with Maury, lunch with George. There you go.
Lunch with George. And
Thursdays with George.
Zoom option, and we get 25, 30, 35 people there. Yeah.
Matt, tell us about Jerry Corum. Where's Jerry? Are you still in group with him?
Jerry's on fire, man. He's awesome. He's in my group. He's in my men's group, and he and Evie are just having a great time. He loves that he gets us too. So he's loving that he gets us. he's just living really a Jesus-centered life and enjoying his next season of life.
I could add to that a little bit, and I don't think Jerry would mind this. That meeting that Matthew talked about going to Oklahoma City several years back, Jerry Corum was part of the Seattle group that went
Yeah, he was
down.
with us.
He was with us for that 3 days in Oklahoma City. And that was 2017. That was early September 2017. Anyway, since that time, his wife passed away a few years ago. But before she passed, he confided in me. Oh, before that, the day after we got back, Matthew, the day after we got back from Oklahoma City, his granddaughter died.
Yeah.
It was 20 years old. 20 years old. And it was a real tough thing. And so that was 6 years ago. But what he shared with me, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school here. This is good to see how the Lord works. He had a somewhat of a strained relationship with the mother of his granddaughter. Her name is Sophia.
Oh, yeah.
And that strained relationship, which was back in present 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, is now as strong as can be.
Yeah.
I talked to Sophia a week ago, and she's on fire for He Gets Us and a lot of other things. But in the midst of sadness, losing your granddaughter, he's now reconnected with his daughter in a way that he's never had before. So you just don't know how the Lord's going to work here. And this lady that he's dating, her name is Evie, and she's just an amazing lady. And so Jerry is back and forth between Palm Desert and Tacoma fairly regularly, and loving life at age 81 or 82. Yep, absolutely.
Hey, for time, I'm watching the clock. We got some folks got to go at 9. Can we get a prayer? Henry, are you able to speak?
Yeah, one thing real quick, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You just said it, Alan. Jesus can be found in anything. And when there's tragedy, ask the question, Jesus, where are you in this? And he'll show you. He's in it. He's in Rwanda. The name of the book is Finding Jesus Through the Rwandan Genocide, right? He's in everything. And so we just have to look for him.
Amen. You know, that woman you mentioned, she's been on my prayer app multiple times too. I think she became a nun, if it's the same person.
I don't know. I just I saw it this morning right before this, and I'm like,
amazing.
Oh, wow.
Henry, will you give us a word? And I will pause this here.